migraines all the time, headaches more than half the month. In that time, I saw 5 doctors and a naturopath, and nothing changed. But in that time, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. I was told that I was infertile, that I would never have children, that IVF wasn't an option for me. I was also diagnosed with things like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, adrenal fatigue, I was pre-diabetic, I had vertigo, migraines all the time, headaches more than half the month, IBS, like you name it, I had it, essentially, but I was a 26-year-old personal trainer, 7 kilos lighter than I am now, looking really fit on the outside, but very sick on the inside. And it wasn't until 2 years into that journey, someone said, try going on a low-carb paleo-type diet. And I thought, okay, why not? Let's try it. I've tried everything else. And 3 months later, I started having my periods again, and it took 2 years. But now everything has healed, so if I want children, I can have them. And I've been told several times in the last 2 years that biological clock is ticking. Think about it if you want it. But I like that that's an option for me now. So everything changed with the right diet, the right supplementation, the right lifestyle changes, except for my Hashimoto's thyroiditis. That did not come into remission until I moved from Sydney to Perth. And the change there was only one difference, is I went from living in King Street Wharf with a motorway right in front of my apartment to now I live in Maylands. And while that's not suburbia, I understand, but that's very different than living right on top of a motorway. So within 6 months of being here, my Hashi's went into remission, and I've been in remission for 5 years. And that for me was the light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, chemicals are really impacting our endocrine health, or our hormone health. And it's something that people don't talk about enough, so that's something that I really want to focus on today. So today we are facing hazards that were neither known nor even imagined just a few decades ago. So since World War II, more than 80,000 chemicals have been invented. And I think that's pretty scary that we are manufacturing these things. They are a threat to our health for several reasons. So first, easy absorption. So chemicals are absorbed in our body just like our essential oils are. So whether that is breathing them in, absorbed through the skin, or ingested, they get into our body really, really easily, just like our oils. Infants are at risk of exposure in the womb, but also through breast milk as well. So pregnant mamas have to be very aware of what they are doing. I encourage you to do your own research on umbilical cord blood and toxins. There are hundreds of studies showing that the umbilical cord blood is laden with chemicals that have really bad detrimental health effects later in life. The next thing is mass production. So in 2014, over 5 million tons of chemicals were released into the environment, whether that is the air, the land, the water, all that sort of stuff. But the companies that actually report for this has declined. So I would say that the number is significantly higher, but companies just aren't reporting that. Too little testing. We know that only a fraction of the chemicals out on the market have been tested for their toxicity. And unfortunately, fewer than 20% have been studied for their capacity to interfere with a child's development. I don't have kids, but I find that really scary. If you do, we've got to be really mindful of what we're putting on them. Next is the heavy use of pesticides. So we know that companies, not our company, but other companies will use pesticides to cut costs, right? It helps them to save money. So while there are still a ton of pesticides used, there are some countries like Canada who are banning the use of pesticides in cosmetics, and some are all of other chemical pesticides in different products. Unfortunately, Australia is very far behind. We haven't really done any of that thus far. And then environmental persistence. So a lot of these chemicals will actually stay in the environment for decades and even centuries, which means it can impact our well-being decades later. It doesn't have to be an immediate exposure to this stuff. So in isolation, and don't rip my head off for this, but in isolation, let's just say hair dye, for example, can be relatively safe in that we do have a natural defense mechanism and we have a natural detoxification process. Because there are some things that we don't have control over, such as stepping outside and inhaling pollution, exhaust fumes. We have to have a defense mechanism for that. So something in isolation shouldn't be overly harmful, but it's when you start putting other things in that it becomes this chemical cocktail. And we know that if one toxin is combined with another, it can actually have really big, harmful impacts. But we don't, as consumers, we don't necessarily know what chemical combined with the other chemical is going to have this big problem. So it's better just to try to eliminate them, right? And if you start thinking, well, I haven't changed over everything in my house, so I've just got a little bit of toxin left. When you think about it, what if you're using this little bit of toxin in your hand soap, and your little bit of toxin in your makeup, and that little bit of toxin in your personal care products? All of these little things add up to big problems later on. So if you picture yourself as a glass, and you keep adding liquid to it, the liquid would be like the little chemicals every little time. Sure, it's going to take time for your cup to fill up. Eventually, it's going to overflow. So for some people, they're fine until one day they're not. And I can say that from personal experience. I literally woke up one day and I couldn't get out of bed. I was totally fine the day before. That next day, I had all the problems. So it just becomes where this cup overflows. So we have to remember that some chemicals will accumulate in our body over time. So impacts can show up far long or far after exposure. Chemicals can also have a bigger impact during certain times of development. So for example, in the womb, infancy, puberty is another very vulnerable time for this. And even tiny, tiny doses can be very potent. So things like fragrance is actually measured in parts per trillion because it's so potent, just that little bit. So because we are talking about the endocrine system, I think we have to review what it is because not everybody understands what it is, but basically it is a body system that's made up of glands that will then manufacture and then secrete hormones into our bloodstream. So whether we're talking about the thyroid, the adrenals, the ovaries, the testes, those sorts of things, that's all part of the endocrine chain. And these chemical messengers, they then assist the body in working the way that it is meant to. But unfortunately, endocrine issues are rampant. Probably all of you in the room either have one or know somebody that has one. So again, whether you're talking about a thyroid condition, an adrenal condition, a sex hormone issue, pancreas, that's also part of your endocrine chain as well. And it's very common for these things to come together. So rarely will someone just have one endocrine issue, they tend to come together. So in my case, I had 4 endocrine issues showing up at once. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, adrenal fatigue, polycystic ovaries, and I was pre-diabetic because of my pancreas as well. So you have to look at that endocrine chain as a whole. So while there are a number of things that can impact our endocrine system, one of the most important and often overlooked are these endocrine disrupting chemicals. And I will say, when I was doing my prac for my naturopathy and nutritional medicine certificates or advanced diplomas, whatever, in clinic we actually had 6 supervisors there, and in the 6 weeks that I was there, not once did any of the supervisors talk about chemicals. They all talked about food and nutrition and the right supplements. Never once were chemicals brought up, and I think that is really lacking, especially in a natural medicine perspective. We have to be talking to people about this stuff. So as Young Living members, I really encourage you, you have this information that you can share with other people and really impact their health and wellness genuinely. So these endocrine disrupting chemicals can have a few different effects within our body because they actually mimic hormones within our body, which means they can actually bind to our hormone receptors. So they can have an effect that is more powerful than the intended hormone. They might have an effect that's less powerful than the intended hormone, or they might do something completely different. And that's oftentimes where a lot of problems occur, is because we're not actually getting the right signal or the right effect. So when it comes to Young Living, we are genuinely very blessed that we can replace so many of these endocrine disrupting chemicals in our home that we have control over with a product with Young Living. If you're like me, DIY is not my jam, so I just like to swap bottle for bottle or tube for tube. You know, I'm not going to sit there and make my deodorant or my toothpaste or my face serum, not my jam. But if you like that stuff, then you can make your own and add Young Living to it. So whatever you like, we do actually have a product there, or the ability to make something more natural as well. And that's something I just want to quickly point out. The timer's not on, Michael, if you want to keep it on. It's black, so I don't know how long I've been on. Michael? He's looking at me like saying, what? So I'll just keep talking, it's fine. If you are still, or if you're new to your living, let's say, and you're still buying stuff from the health food shop, don't be fooled. Just because it's in the health food shop doesn't mean that it's healthy. I didn't know that when I first started to transition over. Oftentimes things are labeled organic. We know that organic can just be 5% in there, and the whole bottle can be labeled organic. But also, oftentimes these organic things will say they're paraben-free and SLS-free and this long laundry list of things that are not in there, but they will contain the word fragrance. Literally, fragrance can have hundreds of chemicals contained within that one word. And what I tell people is, if 250 chemicals were listed on the ingredients on that bottle, would you buy it? Your answer is probably, hell no, why would I do that, right? But because it's listed as one word, we think, oh, it's just that one ingredient, it's okay. It's not safe. Again, remember, it's measured in parts per trillion. So I'm not going to go through all of the endocrine issues that there are because there's a lot, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, so you can take photos of this stuff at a mind. But I want to quickly run through a few of the main things that I see in clinic and also that I've experienced myself. So first are the thyroid disorders. So if the thyroid gland isn't working properly, it will either make too much or too little thyroid hormone. When it makes too much, it's called hyperthyroidism, or if it's the autoimmune type, it's called Graves' disease. So you can see a lot of the things here, the symptoms would be anxiety, irritability, sleep disturbances, losing weight, even though you aren't eating the same amount or even more, and that's just because your metabolism is so ramped up, it's burning off everything that you consume. You can also get really frequent bowel motions, heart palpitations, all these discomforting sort of things. Uncomfortable, not discomforting. Okay, now on the other hand, if the thyroid isn't working properly and it's not producing enough thyroid hormone, that's called hypothyroidism, or in my case, the autoimmune type is called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So symptoms here are depression, apathy, fatigue. You know, you look at a piece of cake and you've put on 3 kilos because your metabolism is turned all the way down. It's not burning a damn thing off, right? So we have to really pay attention to that and don't get hard on yourself that if you're finding it difficult to lose weight, oftentimes there's a physiological reason as to why. It's not a willpower thing, yeah? Next thing are adrenal issues. So we know that the adrenals produce cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Cortisol is not the enemy. We do need some cortisol with higher amounts in the morning, and then it should come down before bed so we can go to sleep. But again, if we're producing too much or too little cortisol, then a problem is going to occur. So if you've got high cortisol, again, things like anxiety, irritability, sleep disturbances are very common here. Impaired thyroid function is another big one. I'll talk about that a bit more later. But rapid weight gain, this is another big thing. Oftentimes around the midsection is where we tend to gain it when we've got high cortisol as well. Our bodies can only produce this high amount of cortisol for so long before it drops out, and we don't actually produce enough cortisol. And this is where we get kind of that adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency, however you want to label it. But we have symptoms like dizziness and apathy and weight gain because we don't have a lot of energy to do things, and we start craving chocolates, refined carbohydrates, sweets, those sorts of things for quick energy. Sex hormone issues are rampant. That's a large part of what I see in clinic. So things like PCOS, endometriosis, really bad period pain, flooding, that sort of stuff. But men also have these issues. So erectile dysfunction is huge. Also hypogonadism, which is just a decrease in testosterone production, is huge. Estrogen dominance is also huge in men as well. And again, that's going to come a lot from the chemical products that we are using. But also a lot of our cancers are endocrine related, so a lot of breast cancers are actually estrogen dependent. So there are a lot of things that impact our endocrine system, and I think I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't quickly mention them. Normally this part of my presentation would take about 25 minutes, literally, so I'm going to do it in about 3. Yeah. Okay, so stress. As I mentioned before, stress is big. I think probably everyone in this room can say that they've got stress in their life. Don't wear that as a badge of honor, please. I think people try to have this competition. I'm so busy, I've got all this on my plate. That doesn't make you better than anybody else. We've got to support ourselves. Don't wear stress and busyness as a badge of honor, please. I was guilty of that. It's hard to take things off your plate, but it's really, really important. And something I want to stress as well is that especially in Young Living, I see a lot of people saying, but I'm using my stress away, I've got my music calming, I've got all the tools that I'm using. They are amazing tools in your toolbox, and I am not negating that, but if you don't fix your lifestyle, it's a Band-Aid. So please don't be using bottles and bottles of stress away thinking I'm doing okay because I can work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day or more, and think you're going to be healthy. You're not. Yeah? So do use your oils, but make sure you're also, again, looking at the root of where all the stress is coming from. See what you can take off your plate, set some boundaries. That deep belly breathing, that breathing from our tummy that we did earlier, that's amazing to decrease our stress levels, because that breathing from your belly rather than your chest sends a physiological signal to your brain that you are not in fight or flight mode and you can rest and restore. Yeah? I would suggest using Endoflex essential oil here every single day. Endoflex is there. Endo stands for endocrine system, so you're supporting your endocrine system by using Endoflex. Sleep is another huge thing, and you guys are going to laugh because I get that every time I tell people you need to sleep at least 7 hours a night. Most people are not getting that, and I would say 8 to 9 is even better, but a minimum of 7, because this is where your body rests and restores. We have to give it downtime and time to switch off. But also, if that's not that motivating for you, our detoxification processes are amped up when we go to sleep. So if you are wanting to detox and to lose weight, you have to give yourself time in bed to sleep. So do use your oils to help you sleep. So, diffuse or put them onto your feet or whatever you need to do to help you get into that sleep routine, and make sure you're making sleep a priority. Diet is huge, and this can be a whole presentation in and of itself. So the only thing I'm going to mention here is that if you are dealing with an endocrine issue, especially an estrogen-dominant one, like PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, those sorts of things, you need to be going on a low-carb diet. I'm not saying keto. Keto is 5 to 20 grams of carbs a day. I'm talking low carb, so 50 to 100. Yeah? It's vital. For me, that is actually what brought my periods back in and gave me the option to have children if I want them. And last are supplements. So there are lots of supplements, but keeping it Young Living specific, things like omega Gis are really good because you have to have essential fatty acids to manufacture your sex hormones. And that's something oftentimes I see in clinic is low progesterone. Even people who are using P3 have low progesterone, because your adrenals, they produce cortisol, but if your cortisol is high, it will chew through your progesterone, making your progesterone levels very low, but also your adrenals not only make cortisol, they make DHEA. Part of your DHEA will convert into sex hormones like progesterone, but the other part of its job is to signal to the ovaries or the testes to make sex hormones as well. So if you are too busy working on, hey, let's make cortisol, you're not going to make a lot of DHEA, and your progesterone and those sorts of things can go out of whack. Yeah? Mineral Essence is another really good supplement to take, in that it has a lot of these trace minerals like iodine and selenium, which support things like our thyroid function. Ningxia is something else that I think everybody should be drinking every day, but it has some B vitamins and a high dose of vitamin C, and your adrenal glands chew those things up. So it just helps to support that endocrine chain as well. I know that was fast, sorry. All right, so let's actually get into these hormone disrupting chemicals, where are they found, and how can we swap them out. So first up is fluoride. It has been shown to inhibit a number of different functions within our body. First, it inhibits insulin secretion, which isn't ideal because insulin helps to regulate our blood sugar levels, right? It also inhibits your parathyroid function. So you've got your thyroid gland in the middle. On either side of it is called the parathyroid gland. It has nothing to do with thyroid function, but what it does is it helps to regulate the body's calcium levels. So if your parathyroid is out, oftentimes we can get excess calcium in the blood, which makes the kidneys work a lot harder, and we're putting undue stress on your kidneys just because your parathyroid function is out. It does also impair our thyroid function, which, as you saw from the previous slide, has a whole host of issues along with it. But it also decreases our melatonin production, and we know that melatonin is very important for sleep onset, but also to help you sleep through the night as well. I personally like and use the Zen water filter that is shown. I've been using it for just over 5 years, but they also actually use it in clinic as well. That was a nice surprise when I went there. I like it because it filters everything out, filters all the gunk out. but it also then remineralizes. So behind the little sticker, you'll see like a little dark tube behind there. There's like 7 different layers of different minerals, or like different little rocks and pebbles. And at the very bottom, there's a bunch of rocks that sit at the bottom. So it actually remineralizes your water, because we need minerals to, again, have a whole lot of different functions in our body work properly. So we don't just want to use like a Brita filter that takes out the fluoride, but then takes everything else out with it. Yeah? It's not cheap. It's $495 if you order it online. So it is an investment, but one that I think is well worth it. But if you live local, you can get them at Maylands Wellness Center, is where I work at. You can just tell them that you're a young living person, and they'll give it to you for 10% off, make it at $450. So I do think it is a really good investment. Next is food. So things like herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides. These chemicals are highly linked to male fertility issues, really specifically, such as impaired sperm quality, impaired sperm production as well. But they are also linked to a lot of hormone-dependent cancers. So again, lots of breast cancers are estrogen-dependent cancers. So these things they mimic estrogen, basically, and that can cause a problem. So ideally, you want to eat organic where possible. The dirty dozen on here are the foods that you want to make sure that you are definitely getting organic, because they're the ones that are sprayed with these herbicides and pesticides and insecticides a lot. The Clean 15 you don't have to worry about quite as much, because most of them that you would see, like, mangoes and grapefruit and those sorts of things, they have a peel on the outside, so it kind of helps to protect that little bit. But where you can, where possible, I definitely encourage you to eat organic. However, if you can't afford organic, or from a principal perspective, and you're like me and you don't want to pay $14 for a thing of celery, I get that, then don't buy organic, use our Thieves Fruit and Veggie Soak. So literally you can just pop a capful in like a sink basin or a big bowl of water, and that's not only going to clean it, like getting rid of like the wax on your apples or grapes or anything, but it actually gets rid of the pesticides, the insecticides, and the herbicides. So it's a very, very cost-effective way to get rid of the chemicals without having to buy organic. Yeah? Alright, so next are phthalates. So I'm not going to go through, it's black again. I'm not going to go through all of the overall endocrine disrupting chemicals there are, because there's a ton. Again, I really encourage you to go and do your own research. Go onto PubMed, so PUBMED. These are all scientific, peer-reviewed studies, articles, case studies, these sorts of things where it's not somebody's blog, nothing like that. And start looking at endocrine disrupting chemicals, because it's pretty shocking. So first up, we've got phthalates. So studies show that phthalates are really harmful to the reproductive system, to the thyroid, to female fertility. They can cause premature breast development in little girls, and they can cause birth defects in the male reproductive system. They decrease sperm count, they decrease sperm motility, and they also damage sperm. And infertility is a big thing that I see, and it's not always us women, it's the little men, they need their swimmers to be functioning properly as well. Phthalates can cause a big issue there. But also, these phthalates are highly linked, and they are a contributing factor to things like obesity and diabetes as well. And you might think, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. Well, again, your pancreas is part of your endocrine system. And oftentimes we know that diabetics or people with blood sugar issues can be more overweight, but also, if your thyroid's not working properly, like I was the perfume queen, which is why the bottle of perfume is on there. Everybody knew if it was my birthday, if it was Christmas, or they were going through duty free, you always got a bottle of perfume. Always. And I would spray that over my thyroid several times a day. No wonder I ended up with a thyroid condition, right? It's not rocket science, really. So phthalates are found in any product containing the word fragrance, yeah? So remember that I said fragrance is not just a one-word thing, it's a chemical concoction. So this is where oftentimes you will see on the label, no parabens, no SLS, no mineral oils, no blah, 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 blah. It will not say no phthalates, because if you flip it over, even if it's organic, it will have the word fragrance on there. So just be very mindful of that. We know with Young Living, fragrance will never be part of our products. We use essential oils in there instead, right? So not only are we getting rid of the crappy stuff that harms our body, but we're putting our essential oils in, which actually have a therapeutic benefit at the same time, right? So a lot of the common personal care products that have phthalates in them are things like shampoo, conditioners, lotions, and again, perfumes, that sort of stuff. So, is it pretty handy that we have lots of shampoos and conditioners that we can use? So, my husband and I personally like either just the plain lavender or the lavender mint shampoos and conditioners because we've got fine hair. People who tend to have thicker hair or curly hair or really dry hair, I think they do better with the Cobaiba vanilla shampoo and conditioner because they're a lot more hydrating. I tried those, but it made my hair look greasy because my hair is too fine for that. But you can also see we've got plain shampoo for kids and infant specific with our Seedlings line, shampoo there as well. And even for those of us who don't have babies, we have fur babies, there is the Animal Snake shampoo and conditioner, I will say this, one of my dogs has a lot of skin allergies and we've gone on a long journey with her and she's a lot better. However, when we were starting that journey, seeing what was causing her problems, I brought the shampoo into both her vet and her specialist, her dermatologist specialist, and the shampoo got the tick of approval for both of them, even in a severely allergic dog, because it's got great ingredients in there. So it's one I highly recommend. A little bit goes a long way as well. We also have lots of lotions. So we've got tons of different lotions available. We like to use both of them, so the Genesis and the Lavender Hand and Body Lotion. We like them thick and creamy, so we use them as is, but I do know a lot of people in the room will dilute them 50-50 with distilled water. A, that's more cost effective, but B, some people prefer it to be more like a body milk rather than a body butter, thick sort of cream. Totally up to you. But again, we've got kid-specific lotion and baby-specific lotions there as well. And again, with perfumes, you don't have to use perfume. I'll go back. We don't have to use perfume, because you can just use your oils. So oftentimes, Sensation was my perfume of choice for a very long time. Sensation Essential Oil is what I'm talking about. Jasmine is what often I'll use now. If I don't use peppermint, I know I'm a weirdo, but I actually love the smell of peppermint, so I use that as my perfume quite a lot. I think it's quite refreshing. So, I'm cool with smelling like your Christmas tree or whatever. It's yummy. But you can pick what you want, and the men can use Chutron or, pick any of the woodsy sort of aromas, or mix your own. Like Janae has made some amazing perfumes out the back. She's created them herself, so check them out as well. So next we've got parabens. So parabens are basically synthetic estrogens, meaning they act like estrogen within the body. This is not good, especially in women who have an estrogen-dominant condition like I did, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, those sorts of things. So don't think that if you are menopausal and you think, oh my gosh, I need to have more estrogen. A, you probably don't. I really recommend that you go get saliva testing to check and see where your hormones are at. But B, if you do need to increase your estrogen, use things like clary sage or something like that instead. Eating 30 to 40 grams of ground up flax seeds every day as well is also great at increasing your estrogen naturally. So we've got natural alternatives. The European Union has actually banned one particular type of paraben for use in fragrance because it has actually been shown to strip the pigment from skin and cause a whole host of other health conditions. And the Danish government has actually banned the use of some of the larger molecule parabens in children's products under 3 because they know that they are very harmful for children and they know that children are more susceptible and more vulnerable to these effects. Again, unfortunately, Australia is not there. We don't have any of these bans in place. But thankfully, we do have the Seedlings and the KidSense line available. So even if you don't have kids, you can still use the Seedlings line for different things. So you can use the diaper wipes for makeup removers or chuck them into your dryer if you have one and use that as a dryer sheet instead. You can use a little linen spray as a pillow spray before you go to bed as well. It's quite nice and refreshing. Up to you. And according to the FDA, parabens are the most commonly used preservative in cosmetics. So not only are you applying that stuff onto your skin, and we know anything on your skin goes into your bloodstream, you're also chucking it on your lips, which means if you're eating or drinking, you are ingesting that as well. Yeah? So this is where I highly recommend that you switch over to the Savvy line. There's stuff for everyone. So everything on my face is Savvy today, so you can start to swap out what you like for you, but there's lots of different colors available. Side note, we do get Anchors Away for free this month at 320 PV, and that's what I have on my lips in case you're not sure what it looks like. Yeah? All right. We also have another source of both phthalates and parabens. So our skincare range, I think, is pretty phenomenal. There's something for everybody there and for every skin type. So while I personally like and use the Orange Blossom face wash and either the Art Light Moisturizer or the Orange Blossom one, that might not be suitable for your skin. You might need more hydration, so you can use, the Boswellia Wrinkle Cream or whatever. There's lots of different options for skincare available as well. So if you're new and you don't really know which way to go, ask the person that brought you here or your upline, do your own research, or talk to Danae or Vicky Clifford. I don't think it's actually here today either, but they can help you out with skincare products as well. Deodorants and antiperspirants are another big source of parabens, and you're sticking that right at your lymphatic zone, right, in your armpits, which is not great. So we do have deodorant options available. There are 2 types. I'll be honest, I personally don't like the deodorants. I don't think that they're great products. That's me. I prefer the Thieves Waterless Hand Purifier instead. So we know that it's the bacteria that stinks, and if we're killing that, you kind of don't really need anything else. It's not an antiperspirant, but I think it's a good option to change it out. And a lot of people actually use the Thieves toothpaste as well. So you can use that as a deodorant alternative if you like as well. All right, next is triclosan. So this is an antibacterial agent, and it has been shown to interfere with thyroid function because it influences how the thyroid hormone acts within our body. It is also estrogenic, and honestly, I think this is why estrogen-dominant conditions are so rampant, is because a lot of these things mimic estrogen within our body. So I like to clear a lot of that out. But triclosan is also linked to things like asthma and allergies, but also central nervous system issues as well. It's found in any sort of antibacterial product, so whether that's a hand soap, a hand wash, hand sanitizer, that sort of thing. But it's also found in toothpaste as well. So if you're putting that in your mouth, all those mucous membranes in your mouth are going to absorb all those chemicals. So again, we've got to be really careful. So you'll be shocked to have a whole line of these. Wow, for cleansing, right? So we don't really have an excuse to be using something that is chemical laden when we have the Thieves soaping hand soap, or if you don't like that, you can use the lavender one. We've got tons of different bar soaps if you prefer having that by your sink instead. I think we've got like 8 or something like that that you can choose from. Keep the hand purifier in your handbag. Some people prefer the Thieves spray, so they'll use that instead of the hand sanitizer if they're out and about. And the Thieves wipes, of course, you can use that on your hands or on the tray, like if you are out or traveling, wipe down your tray, or some people actually wipe the toilet with it. I think that's a bit of a waste. I say just hover over the toilet or get some toilet paper down, but whatever you want to do, you can do it to eliminate those chemicals. From an oral care perspective, we've got 3 different types of toothpaste to choose from for adults. We have them, but we also have a KidSense toothpaste as well. I personally like the Dentron Plus best. That's my favorite, whereas my husband likes the Dentron Ultra. The only note I will say with the Ultra is that it does contain xylitol, which is great for your oral health. Look that up if you don't know why. But xylitol is very, very, very toxic to dogs. So make sure that your dogs can't get into it because it can kill them. Just a small amount, yeah? But I find in a lot of my US team, they love the Aroma Bright. So it's up to you, whatever you prefer. There's 3 different types there. And again, I didn't take it here, but we've got the KidSense toothpaste as well. We also have the mouthwash. I dilute that 50-50 with distilled water because it's quite spicy and intense. And then you've got your Thieves Dental Floss as well. All right, so the last little group, I'm doing good on time today, are things like SLS, SLES, ALS, and AFES. So that's a long bit of things, but these are basically surfactants, which are used as foaming agents in things like shampoos, body washes, toothpaste, those sorts of things. They are also used as detergents in conventional cleaning products as well, and they can have a whole host of negative side effects. They are carcinogenic, meaning cancer-causing, so we want to make sure we clear those out. But they can also cause skin irritation, asthma, hormonal disruptions such as PMS or PMT, exacerbated menopausal symptoms, decreased male fertility, and SLS specifically is an estrogen mimicker, which again, you don't want if you have an estrogen-dominant condition. So again, we're very lucky that we've got a huge range of options when it comes to these. We've got lots of different body washes available. I personally prefer the bar soaps. I think they last a really long time and they actually foam up really well without the chemicals. But it's totally up to you what you like. They last a long time and they work really, really well. And then from cleaning, again, we've got this whole Thieves line, so try out the Thieves dish soap and the Thieves laundry soap. And definitely, if you haven't ordered it yet, your next order should definitely have Thieves household cleaner in it because it will replace literally every single one of the cleaners in your home. Super cost effective. When you just do like a little capful in a 500ml bottle, it ends up being cheaper than Coles home brand toxic stuff. So it actually makes sense to swap it out. So is there anybody in here that's not actually member yet? Okay, good. So anyone that's new that you get in contact with and they want to decrease the chemicals in their home, recommend the Healthy Home Premium Starter Kit to them. Great value for money at $289. You're getting 8 Thieves products. And again, a lot of this you can dilute, like the dish soap. You can dilute it to where you get 3 bottles of that instead. Same with the foaming hand soap. You can dilute that and get 3 bottles of that. Dilute out the mouthwash, you're getting 2 bottles of that. So it actually becomes really, really cost effective for people. So for those of you here, Essential Rewards is actually the great way and the most cost-effective way as well to start creating this chemical-free home. A, because obviously you're getting points back that you can cash in for free product, but we also have these Essential Rewards bundles. So we've got the Beauty Essential Rewards bundle on the left. The middle is the Healthy Body bundle, and then the other one is the Healthy Home Essential Rewards bundle. So you can get one of these for the next 3 months, and you're pretty much going to swap out all of the toxins in your home, and it's very, very cost effective as well. Something I like to point out is that I think, and I like that people are more aware of the foods that they are eating. They're trying to eat more organic, eat healthily. Do eat your grass-fed and finished or free-range stuff, wild-caught stuff as much as possible. But if you are not focusing on what you are putting on your body and only focusing on what you're putting in your body, you're missing the point. You have to do both to have complete health and wellness. You've got to get rid of the chemicals and focus on, creating this low-tox home as well. So I appreciate you guys listening and for coming in today. I really do love this message, and again, it was the short, abbreviated one, but you're welcome to share this with whoever you like. I don't mind. I want people to talk about this more because so many of us women have these problems. So I know for me, it's been an amazing transformation, and now Bridget gets to come and share her story with her little one. Just make sure you've got some tissues ready, because it's a great story, but you probably will have a bit of a cry. So thank you, and Bridget, come up.
I'm Bridget. I'm 2 years into my young living journey. This photo is of me with my beautiful twin girls. They were born after a 5-year battle with IVF. They're fraternal twins, obviously. The one with the plaster on her arm, Madison, is my fiercely independent little lady, and my story and my journey with young living centres around her. So in 2016, at the age of 5.5, around the time that this photo was taken, I pulled Madison out of the bath one day to realise that her body was developing. I took her off to the GP, who then referred me on to a paediatric endocrinologist. So there's now a specialty out there, hormone doctors for children. So on examination in mid-2017 with the specialist, she was now aged 6.5. She was assessed as being high-end Tanner 2. This information is all available on the internet if you Google Tanner stages. This means that her sexual development was equivalent to that of a 10-year-old girl. We went on to have regular blood tests, where her initial testosterone scores were found to be elevated. We hit panic stations a couple of months later when her testosterone score came back to that of a teenage boy. She was diagnosed with central precocious puberty. Central precocious puberty is a condition that causes early sexual development in girls and boys, while puberty normally starts between the ages of 8 and 13 in girls and 9 and 14 in boys. Girls with central precocious puberty begin exhibiting signs before age 8 and boys before age 9. My baby was 5 when this started. She still went to hunt for fairies in the garden, and she still wore tutus on a daily basis. And here I was having to discuss pregnancy, periods, and babies. Interestingly, at the time that we first met with the endocrinologist, central precocious puberty was diagnosed as girls sub 11 years of age. In reviewing the information that I had in preparation for this talk, I discover that they've actually revised it to girls sub age 8. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's just wrong. Now, when we talk about early onset puberty, we're not just talking about an early period. When girls stop their pubertal development, it means that they also stop growing in height. At the age of 6, when we took her off to see the endocrinologist referred us on to have a bone density scan done. Her projected height was 159 centimetres. Not too bad. I'm 165, only a little bit shorter than me, but her bones were ageing ahead of time too. At that stage, she had the bones of a 10-year-old. Might also remind you at this point, she'd broken her arm for the first time, following a fairly benign fall at Kings Park on the spongy playmat that they have underneath their play equipment up there. This also means that she would start going through her store of eggs sooner. If she wanted to be a mother, it'd have to happen at a reasonably young age. We can cope with that. Madison's testosterone scores were high enough, the doctor chose ACT rather than wait. They would give her a little injection every few months, just to put everything in a hold pattern and wait for her age to catch up with her development. Great. Treatment involved injecting synthetic hormone blockers every 6 to 10 weeks into my now needle-phobic daughter. Wouldn't be great, but we could manage. Then the kicker. Oh, by the way, there was a chance that this hormone blocker could send her into menopause. It's still a relatively new treatment, so they weren't really sure what would happen. So then we had to consider having an egg retrieval procedure prior to beginning the blockers. Being an IVF mum myself, I knew exactly what was involved in that egg retrieval. I was being asked to make lifelong decisions for my little girl. I sought a second opinion, who basically gave me the same diagnosis and options. I was lost and scared and had no idea what to do. The doctor sent me away with a booklet and some time to think, along with another referral for another blood test. Luckily for me, that was the weekend that Michelle was due to come and visit the girls and I. She got the whole download. My worries, my fears, my concerns. She started telling me about endocrine disrupting toxins in everyday household chemicals and suggested the interim steps of reducing the family tox load whilst I was making a decision. We made a complete overnight switch. I dutifully took Madison for her blood test, then went back to the endocrinologist. Before I could speak, he showed me the results. Her testosterone was very slowly declining. I asked for more time which he was happy to give. Next follow-up, another decline. We couldn't have been happier. His words to me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it. We are now on the cusp of her 9th birthday, and I am absolutely ecstatic to say that just with the simple step of reducing the tox load of my family, we're still sitting in that holding pattern. We were told that she would have her first period before the age of 7, and she is almost 9. Fingers crossed, we'll at least see her 9th birthday. So I'd like to leave you with, we're talking about endocrine disrupting toxins. Jen's giving us all the information on what to do for us. We need to consider our kids too. It's not just anecdotal evidence, it's stuff that's actually really happening. If at any point in time anyone wants to meet my daughter and have a chat to her, you're absolutely most welcome to. She knows exactly what's going on with her, and she's happy to talk to you about it too. Thanks.